All right, I'm here with Dave Madden, and Dave is somebody I've known for a while now. Probably since 2007 was the first show that we did together.
Yeah,
Was that
7 or 8 years.
the Joni Mitchell show? Was that the first show?
First one was this one, The Dark Side of the Moon.
Okay,
That was the first one.
that was the first one.
Mm-hmm.
So Dave was highly recommended to me by another singer-songwriter, Sarah Sharp.
Sarah Sharp.
Sarah Sharp said, "Hey, you need to call up Dave. He'd be just great for." And this show we've done a number of times. I'm really excited because Dave, we're putting together a very special evening. It's another kind of pinnacle Austin music night, and that we've taken a holiday, in this case Halloween, and paired it with an album that just seems perfectly paired for Halloween.
Right.
And the idea is that we're creating an experience, something that could be an annual event that people come back to year after year, kind of like Mardi Gras, and or was it Carnival Brazil they have here in
Carnival.
Austin?
Oh yeah.
Or what is it? Yeah,
Carnival.
Carnival. You've been to that? Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's been going on for 30 years. It's this huge event. But my side of it is with Strings Attached, we bring in all these different Austin artists, and they bring their own flavor to the mix. And so we're creating this experience where we present our interpretation of The Dark Side of the Moon. Your band is going to open with your original music, so we start the evening with a six-piece, right? Or is it
8-piece.
8-piece Dave Madden ensemble, original music by Dave to start the night, and then Dave's going to join Strings Attached for our interpretation of The Dark Side of the Moon. On Halloween night, that music is some of the spookiest music, rock and roll, however you want to call it.
Right.
And,
very dark.
yeah,
Very brooding. Very spooky.
yeah. And so we want people to come and pass the word about this show if they're looking for an experience that is going to take them into another world, another place, wherever that place they decide to go. We're going to go along with them musically and talk a little bit. I want to talk a little bit about this particular album. How it's very interesting to me when I was thinking about what is it every time we do it. It feels like a spiritual experience in a lot of ways, spiritual. And the word that came up for me, and I know you're probably going to get this. First of all, the word that comes up for me is space. Okay.
Yeah.
Right? You get
exactly. Yeah.
Space. It allows, because it's not necessarily like the music itself that is, I mean, it's cool, but we take it so far away from the original. We still stick to the lyrics are there and all that, but the space in the music allows our players to come in, and it's really a live event that happens live. We're not reproducing the album per se, note for note.
Right.
And that's what makes it exciting, special, a one-time thing, that it's different every time because the album has so much space.
Right.
And if you bring the right group of people together, and my job as a leader is to be able, at least I think my job as a leader is to do, is to think, okay, who will fit together in the ensemble, who will complement each other, who's going to hear that original intention of Pink Floyd, but then bring their own voice to it and pull it off.
Yeah.
Right? And with that space, that seems every time we do it, it seems to happen quite well.
Yeah, that's the thing about Pink Floyd and specifically Dark Side of the Moon with the space in the music. It's almost like each chord kind of happens, and then you have a moment to just think about that chord, and then there's another chord, and then you have kind of another moment, and it's very relaxing in that way because there's so much music out there, I think, that's kind of vying for your attention. Don't let the listener get bored ever, so just keep them, change it. But even in part, like the top of,
You want to see it?
Yeah, just that kind of
Oh yeah, and just from those three notes, immediately.
And it just kind of, you go, okay. Okay. And everybody gets kind of a chance to listen to each thing. It lands in your brain and you can process it. I think that's part of what makes it so kind of captivating and entertaining, but relaxing at the same time. It gives it that peaceful vibe to it.
Yeah, and it's interesting that it came about right during the high point of rock and roll's heyday. You know, when
Right.
Led Zeppelin and the Beatles were playing very frenetic music,
Right.
and when you listen to the recordings, it's like an oral landscape, You know, people listen to this album with their eyes closed and done,
Right.
you know, drugs while they listen to it because it takes them away, and it's almost like the perfect new age relaxation music, but yet it's not.
Yeah,
New
it's
age
an album.
music.
It's an album
Yeah.
that really breathes.
Really breathes. Yeah.
Kind of breathes.
Yeah, and the idea of it being a programmatic record too has always appealed to me. That you play the whole thing straight through, which is what we do, and sitting down and like just one complete meditation or one journey that takes you through,
Right.
and the fact that it's so well that they worked it out. You know, there are elements that come back.
Yeah.
You know, as like a symphony.
Right.
You know, so you have the beginning, the first piece of the first movement of the Dark Side of the Moon is you hear all those sounds. It's like the what do you call it, the exposition. And if you were studying symphonic form, you presented all the themes, all the sounds are presented in that first section, and they're brought back throughout the entire Dark Side of the Moon.
Certain
They come
moments.
back. Right.
Yeah. Helps to organize
Yeah.
what you're hearing,
Right.
not just a bunch of random.
Random stuff. Yeah.
Mhm.
But if we start with just that first, introduction that's very short, kind of avant-garde, and insane, the screaming that's going on, and
Right.
it leads right into "Breathe." It's the first
Right.
song, and that whole long section, the intro to "Breathe," no lyrics. It's just the steel guitar
Right.
taking its time, just
Yeah,
like you said,
right.
setting the tone of relaxation. And then, but it's not necessarily that way for the entire album. I mean, there are, it goes into other territory that isn't necessarily that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
money and
right.
on the run, especially, probably the most frenetic.
that's
use of
right.
it.
I don't know. And then it ends with this grand finale. But again, we've done it. This is probably the 8th time, maybe 10th time we've done it. And when we started, it's not like there's no weird chords, or jazz chords. We've talked about that.
Mm-hmm.
It's all just basically diatonic, except for the kind of avant-garde section.
Right.
And then so I've always asked that question, like, well, then what is it that's so amazing? Are we projecting onto that because it's the Dark Side of the Moon? But I really think it's a combination of players that we bring together. That's what I'm projecting. I'm projecting like, wow, Dave Zirkle, Steve Zirkle, Rob Kazanel, the family that we bring together in that context of space. Somehow something magical happens.
And this show, more than any other show that I've done with Strings Attached, people just have a really visceral reaction to it after the show. I mean, it's common. All the Strings Attached shows are great. People say they're great, but this one, I've just gotten so many comments of like, wow, and people that still, when I bump into them, talk about. I think one of the times we did it at Ruta Maya, and I still get that. People
from that time.
Yeah.
It's that Maya Angelou quote about people will forget, what they say. People will forget what you say, but they will never forget how you made them feel. That's music has that ability to touch sort of the limbic system in the brain, which is the emotional center of the brain, and create these memories.
Right.
One of the things I was thinking about was related to that is we've had Lisa Tingle many, many times. What's very interesting to me is she does the Great Gig in the Sky, which is completely wordless, but yet without words, without fail, every single time.
Yeah.
How does it? People.
Right away, it's such a. With no words, just that voice.
Right.
Amazing.
Right. It strikes something primal, emotional, release. We've experienced what we experience is release. The audience, people cry, people
Right.
It's as if they're in church.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Still recording? Yeah. It's as if they're in church, and she is, converting.
Yeah, well, that's the role I've
say.
really come to. I mean, I've spent plenty of time doing music, sacred, secular,
Right.
in church and out in the world, and I have come to think of, especially great musicians that have honed their craft and everything, as kind of secular priests.
Yep.
Like out in the world. There's so much that happens in life that doesn't happen in a church, but people are having meaningful experiences, and music being kind of the soundtrack. It's like that thing shepherding them through their lives, like their rituals, and there's music, as if it's a church, but it's the real world.
And it's, no need for language, no need to know the same language.
Mm-hmm.
So it seems to communicate on an emotional level, universal level. I'm just thinking of the different movements of the dark side of the moon, and that particular one, never ceases to amaze me what the audience, how they respond to it.
Mm-hmm.
And they, I remember the last time it was about a year ago, and sometimes you can see the change from that. You walk in and there was Dave Quanberry's mother was there, and she was sitting very still. And then after the show, I walked up, and she had just completely transformed. She was relaxed. I mean, her eyes, it's almost as if she had laughed. Yeah. And she was, it was like we'd had, the friendship had already been built without any words, just being in that room together with the four walls and going through that 2 hours together.
Right.
So, and we had said nothing to each other, but she came up and hugged me immediately, and it was in a completely different place. So that's that transformative effect of music. But of course, and everybody has their music that they like to do that. Some people might not dig the dark side of the moon, but we are appealing to those who might dig, this particular presentation with Austin musicians, and those who would like to see what we do with our own interpretation of it. And so you're doing, you're opening up the night with your music, and you said you had a 9-piece band, is that what you said?
I think it's an 8-piece band this time. It's always 8 or 9.
Right.
So that's drums, bass, guitar, me leading the band from the keyboard and singing. Yeah. Percussion, like a dedicated percussion guy, and 3 horns. And I've got Mike Mordecai on trombone, John Mills on tenor sax.
So when you were, just go back to a little trivia, when you were being pulled into this life of being a priest, musical priest, right? I mean, why this? I still ask myself the question, like, why do I do this? What is my reason for pushing? Because being a musician, to survive, to make a living doing this, takes an incredible amount of push, incredible amount, at least for myself. I mean, maybe you've got your Mr. Yoga guy and do meditation. I do as well, but.
No, it's hard.
A lot of times,
it's hard. I think it's hard for everybody to make a living doing this.
In any era, not just this era or any era, 50 years ago, 30 years ago. So I'm always curious what other people, what drives them? Why do this? Why not do this as a hobby and do something else? I just start with that. Why not? I'm still kind of asking. I have answers to that. I could say for myself, I'll just give it really quickly, is I really do enjoy and feel like, back to that priest thing, I do feel a calling, and that I am able to bring people together and bring a certain amount of community, and bring people together for an experience where they do forget the troubles in their lives, and they feel alive, and they can go back to their lives, whatever that may be, feeling renewed, and maybe asking the question, well, how can I get more of that? How can I create more of that? What if the world was all like that? Just like John Lennon said, you may think I'm a dreamer, but, come join us. And so I love making people happy. I love seeing people transform, just like I described the mom transforming. So who wouldn't want to not have a job like that?
Right.
So that it's like beyond just making money or just the pure joy of having people like, yay, Will Taylor, love that. I love witnessing from the stage and off the stage the transformation that occurs every time if you just back away from it and do your thing and view people. So for me, that's where I am now. That's where I'm with it.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, and it's hard, but you know,
yeah.
I love that.
And you're good at it.
Well, thanks.
I mean, you're good at it.
Yeah, I'm getting better at it.
I mean, it's like, no, I totally
That's
agree
true.
with that, and view like being a secular priest. Not that I think about that all the time, but I think that lifelong musicians that have a lot of experience, like, are kind of experts at that, at, like, shepherding people through experiences coming together, providing a backdrop for a container.
That's good.
For it, for an experience to happen, where people have good times, you know, people fall in love.
Right.
You know,
a backdrop. That's right.
Music, like, in that thing. But on a practical level, it's what I've always done, and I'm good at it.
Right.
I mean, it never occurs to me to not do it anymore. I just would never do that. You know, I would never quit doing it because I enjoy it, but also it's like, what else would I do?
Right, I know.
I mean, I'm pretty heavily invested in the music thing at this point.
Well, and I was asking last night at Strings on Grass, everybody in the band, I said, what odd jobs did you have before you were a musician? Carol in Wonderland said, I've only been a musician. I've never done anything else. You know? And I said, well, there's, you know, come on, when you were 13 or 14, what were you doing? And she said, you know, well, I was a, you know, bartender in a bar. And I said, well, what do you think about that? And so I walked away, and then 5 minutes later, she goes, Will, come here. I got one for you. I got one. Okay, well, I worked at Astroworld, and one day, Bugs Bunny guy came and said, or the Bugs Bunny guy called in sick, and I ended up, you know, being the Bugs Bunny at Astroworld. So that was great.
Right.
Know? But, and for me, before I was a musician, I worked at a Stubbs barbecue. I served beer and barbecue to bikers at Stubbs barbecue while I was bagging groceries at HEB, 1987, 1988. And I went with Stubbs, the guy that they named Stubbs out after, the actual large guy that, you know, had the barbecue joints in the Panhandle. And he and I would go do, you know, parties in his Cadillac and put barbecue in the back there. And the Cadillac only went forward; there was no reverse. So you know, that's my silly non-music job, you know.
Yeah.
And I would play at this blues place. It was Stubbs Barbecue. They had a jam, blues jam. That's where I met Glenn Rexash.
Oh, wow.
Was at the Stubbs Barbecue Jam, and I would get my blue electric viola up there and sit in with the blues jam. I met Glenn Rexash and other players. This is in the late '80s. So, so Dave, did you have anything that you did that was kind of?
I've had a number of less than desirable jobs. I think my very first one was I got a job at McDonald's when I was like 15. And I got the uniform, and I went down to the basement to watch like a VHS tape for orientation, and it was so disgusting down there. Like, the floors were covered in like grease and flies, and I quit. So I never actually worked even 1 minute, you know. But I got the uniform, and then I just promptly gave the uniform back. But I've worked at Blockbuster Video. How
long did it last? That's what
probably on and off, like summers.
Yeah.
Like a summer job.
Okay.
Kind of a thing. And then I was playing in this country band in Nashville, and we would do just odd jobs for cash. And this was like in the backwoods outside of Nashville in Tennessee. And me and the drummer this one time took a gig, like a day gig. This farmer needed a huge pile of tires. Just moved from one place to this other place, like across a field. So just all day long, we just humped these tires across a field, you know, rolling them, throwing them, whatever. It's like some of the most backbreaking work I've done, like truck tires and stuff, big tires.
All day long.
So yeah, tire mover, professional tire mover.
Yeah.
pile of tire.
And this is when you're in your teens or in your early
Yeah,
20s?
but 19 or 20. That would
Okay.
have been 19 or 20.
Yeah, I was just thinking backwards to those kind of jobs that I had and what was going through my head at the time. I remember just a couple times thinking like I have to do whatever it takes. One of the jobs was a desk job, working on a computer in an office, with a standard hierarchical structure, which that's all what most people work under in an office. And I just like whatever I have to do to avoid this. I felt like I was going to die if I didn't get out of there.
Right.
Seriously. Or the having to show up at 5 a.m. at Fajita Junction to make fajitas. It was like one of those burger joints where you drive through, kind of like P. Terry's. And being there at 5 in the morning, preparing the eggs. And it's like, whatever. I just, my mind was constantly thinking like, how fast can I quit? Basically. Yeah. And that's kind of how, in a way, like a lot of these things have evolved out of that. Just, I'll do it at whatever it takes to avoid having to go back to that. But now I have a different look on it. I think that everybody should experience a certain amount of menial work, and still to this day, it's not nothing's. I don't want to be like that's below me. Then it was when I was in my early 20s. It was like, oh, I'm not. This is not for me, So, but now I think everybody like have kids and they have to do some of that, and everybody should still clean the toilets and bathrooms, and but nobody's above that because that's part of experiencing every bit of life, and you can be back to the whole zen of it, right? Like cleaning the toilet could be as zen as playing a piece of music, right? That's what we got to get.
Yeah, anything could be art.
Could be,
taken to the highest level.
Absolutely, I know. But that's only recently for me when I started thinking.
And what's funny is that you would think, well, toilets are way down here, and music is this really beautiful high thing. But
that's right.
I think that I actually like to take music off of the pedestal, and keep it like a colleague, a friend, not like a god that I bow to or anything. Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. And I think having that music on a pedestal for a lot of musicians distracts them from all the other practicalities of like being able to make a living at it. You have to distance yourself in certain ways from the music, because if you're just having one never-ending music-gasm, how can you make a living like that? Or how can you form new projects and show up on time and rehearse? And it's not all just wonderful, intoxicating music all the time.
Yeah,
well, but it will be this Friday.
But it will. Yes, that's what we.
That's what we train for, and that's what we prepare for.
Exactly.
It's for that moment of special music
and sharing that with an audience, with that it's part of the equation is the listener. What was I going to say? There was something else that. So we'll. And one of the things I've always enjoyed is when I play weddings. I did a wedding Saturday night, and we played 4 hours Western swing music. When we were done, the family gathered around a fire pit, and they took out their guitars and immediately were playing songs, and so the idea that music is accessible and available and to everybody at whatever level, and it's just another way of sharing time together. And they had such a great time, and it was providing, like you said, that container of connection for them, and it didn't matter. So. Yeah. But there is something to be said. I mean, I don't know. You don't want to put. We should. Like I was going to say, Picasso. There's Picasso. Then there's folk music. But who cares? I mean, but it's just we want people to have a good time, and we're there to provide the focal point to pull people in, to focus on hopefully being present during those 2 hours. And enjoying each other's company. I like the fact that a lot of people say that our shows are very laid back. If you go to a symphony or a recital, it may not be as laid back. You can't make noise. You got to sit real quiet. You got to sit in your seat. And that is actually very like I like experiencing music that way. I like going to a recital and having to be really silent. So there's nothing. I'm not saying there's anything against that, but generally in our shows, it's not going to be that feeling of, I can't move. There's more of a laid back feel to it.
Right.
So we want you all to come. We just thought we'd give you a little sample of what's going on with us and musically.
We've been excited about this show for quite some time.
Yeah, we keep coming back, and the other thing about being a musician that I love is that the power of attraction is very apparent. And for me, music, like when you're young and you're playing, you're learning how to play your instrument, and you're focusing so much individually on yourself, learning licks, learning the mechanism. Okay. And sometimes musicians can get stuck in that, and they have their own little cocoon around them. But to me, and what's come up in the last few weeks of working with all these different players, is the ultimate frontier, and this ties it in with what we were talking about at the very beginning of this conversation. The ultimate frontier for me isn't how much I can practice, how many licks, how fast I can play, how many keys can I play in, how many whatever. But it's ensemble. All it takes is one other person. And you have a duet, and you have an ensemble. You have it or you don't. Chemistry, interaction. That's the ultimate frontier. You can have individual soloing within that, but then, but how that's put together. You know what I'm saying? The conversation, and then if you have a trio, quartet, whatever. That to me is what never gets boring.
Yeah.
Is never. Like if I go hear music, okay. Pat Metheny once said this. He said, "When I'm soloing, I'm thinking like, what would I like to hear if I were the listener in the audience?" And I thought that was really cool. So same thing. If what do I want to hear? Well, so what I try to create with strings attached is not just a bunch of badass soloists who can go off and solo in the context of jazz or whatever, but what can we create as a unit? Arrangements, and also opening up to the band and saying, "Hey, Dave, what do you hear anything on this? You do your thing." And make that work in the whole kaleidoscope, and that is endlessly fascinating.
Yeah.
As if when you meditate, when they say it's endlessly fascinating to follow your breath in meditation, to me, But I get bored very quickly if I go here just soloing all night long. Some people aren't bored by it, but I do. What do you do? Does that resonate with you?
Like a blues trio,
right?
Where a guy just solos all night long.
Right.
I get bored by that.
I can hear it for 30 minutes. But,
right.
But personally, and so back to the thing, like, what do I want to hear? That's what I try to present with this group. Is if somebody comes to one of our shows, it's going to be like a meal, a well-rounded meal. You're not going to have steak all night long. You're not going to have, So, for instance, when the song "Mother," we took that song from a rock ballad, turned it around, took the drums out of it completely, recreated it from the bottom up. That's what we do in Strings Attached, and it became a piano-based tune, and I feel that arrangement of ours, or that we've pulled off together, really projects the song well, like the actual the emotions,
the emotional
lyrics
content
of the song.
The lyrics and everything.
Yeah, and it really fits your voice and your piano style. And we don't always hit it on the mark, but that one, I feel like we made our own signature. And you made, especially you, because you lead the song, "Mother." So, are there any other ones that in this or any other projects we've done where you felt like, we've kind of recreated it from the bottom up?
I think we've done really nice things with "Money." That's going to be in this show.
That's right.
I think that's multiple people get to solo on that and kind of all lend their own voices to it.
Right.
A lot of dynamics in that one.
Yeah.
I think that's it.
And then what else do we do? Well, of course, "On the Run" is completely the only 5% of the piece is original. The little keyboard lick. So people seem to dig it.
Yeah.
So okay. Anything else you can think of that your brain wants to talk to?
We'll see you Friday.
See you Friday at Carpenter Hall. Listen to Dave. Depending on when you're hearing this podcast, Dave's going to be on KUT Tuesday.
KUTX 98.9.
That would be October 28th. Today's the 27th. 28th.
Tuesday of the week of Halloween at 8:30 in the morning.
And then Fox TV on Thursday and Friday, both?
Thursday, Dave Madden Band, and Friday, Strings Attached.
And Friday, Strings Attached. We have Mark Utter leading. Not leading, but singing. Dave singing. We have Courtney Santana, Steve Zirkle on trumpet and bass, Rob Casanel on drums, Jake Langley on guitar, and we're going to be featuring throughout the week on Facebook and on this podcast little interviews and portrayals or little essays about each artist, so you kind of get to know the band before Friday. You walk in there, you're going to feel like that we're your extended family.
Yeah.
I mean, we want you to come up and say hi at the show and let us know, how you found out about us and become part of the Strings Attached family. So we're excited because it's Carpenter Hall, which is a unused piece of property that is it used to be the Carpenters Union, and we're going to take it over. It's right down near P. Terry's, South Lamar, and Barton Springs. Just right around the corner from where ACL is produced.
400 Josephine Street.
We're on Josephine Street. So please share this, and if you want to enter our contest, we want to encourage you to enter our contest. All you have to do is RSVP. There's no charge to RSVP. That just puts you on the list to be in line. We only have 600 seats for this show. It's going to sell out fast. But just RSVP. You're going to get free music when you RSVP. And that's it. You'll be on the list. And let us know where you're listening from and if you have any questions. So we'll take care. This is Will Taylor, over and out. See you soon. Okay, 30 minutes. So I can chop that up and do the whole thing. Okay, that's great, man. All right, got it done. I'm going to go finish my...
I think it's still recording.
Is it? Oh, wait.
See, it stopped.
Oh, yeah, you're right, because you got to go like this up here on this deal. No? Oh.